Welcome to Our Two Cents, a podcast about money, real life, and the decisions that shape both. Welcome back to the Our Two Cents podcast. We are fresh off the road, ready to get back to it.
Yeah, fresh is an understatement. We're still busy
we're
getting
still
over
recovering.
jet lag. Yeah, but it was a good trip.
Yeah, we had a good trip to Europe. Took the kids to go see some historical sites, went to a soccer game,
Football.
football game.
Yep.
Okay, football game. And that's our favorite thing to do over spring break.
Yeah, it was our second year going to Europe
Yep.
over spring break.
Can we make an annual thing?
I think we should. I don't think it's for the faint-hearted. It's like hit and run, especially if you want to do more than one country.
Yeah.
Which is oftentimes what we tend to do. But
Hit
it
the
was
ground running.
amazing just to see memories being made, but also just the joy on the kids' faces. It's priceless.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump into the podcast today. We're talking about 5 money myths that are keeping people stuck.
Yeah, and this is going to be a good one because we are going to share money myths that we had ourselves. So just areas that we needed to change certain things, but also some areas that when we speak to people that we coach in this particular area or just discussions with friends and family, that some of them might still have some of these myths that or things that they believe that I think today's episode is just going to shed some light and maybe it'll change the way that you think about some of these things.
Some perspective. So jumping into number 1, financial stress is a money problem.
Yeah, I disagree with that. And the reason why I say that is like a lot of people believe that just purely the money side of things, you make a little money, you're going to have financial stress, right?
Money answers your problems.
Yeah, I mean, we know lots of people that are wealthy, or you read all these things, people winning the lottery, and then they seem to be happy, but it's temporal.
It's like a astonishing percentage, like 90-something% of people that win the lottery that end up burning through all the money.
Yeah, or even like professional sports people,
Yeah.
right? They're making bank, they're making lots of money, and then once they retire because they haven't set up systems, they haven't invested and set aside cash for the future, they end themselves finding themselves in a position where they just don't have enough to be able to either maintain their lifestyle or even worse than that, where they're able to survive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a root cause issue, right? Like when you go to talk therapy and you're talking through things in your life that you're struggling with, it's trying to identify where the root cause is. And I feel like when it comes to money, so many of the issues are root cause issues. It's peeling back behind. Money's like the surface level, right? It's our salary, what we spend on, what we love, but beyond that, it's really what we're passionate about, and it's the experiences we've been through and the behavior. That's where really the root starts, is the behavior. And a lot of times the financial issues people have, it's the behavior of like YOLO, I'm young. I mean, I can definitely say in my early 20s, I spent money on things that I had zero passion about, but I was single. It was my whole income. It was like, okay, the future is far away, so I don't need to think about that. I'll do that in my 30s and my 40s when I'm old. Like that's
As if that's
it's crazy.
old,
I know
right?
it's weird to think that
Yeah.
that was old at the time. Or just ignorance. It's just choosing to ignore the reality.
And I think sometimes with ignorance, it's ignoring the reality, but also just we aren't taught. I say we, but lots of people aren't taught
Yeah.
anything about personal finances, right? I know
Yeah.
we've spoken about you, like where you were exposed to getting a credit card at a young age.
Yeah.
I was not, but the vast majority of people that we speak to have no training when it comes to this. They've never heard about it. They just kind of just figure things as they go.
Well, then once you move through adulthood and as you're getting into a relationship and then marriage, then that can bridge into not communicating in a marriage. Like it's so vitally important when you're looking at getting married, when you're dating, or if you haven't had the conversation yet as a married couple, stopping and doing that soon, immediately, to really align on goals and spending habits and things like that. Because if you're not communicating, and I'm fine if one person takes the lead, but there needs to be constant communication regarding your finances, then that is, the trickle down effect of not being able to meet your goals because you're not on the same page.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important. If there's anybody watching this episode that's considering getting married, having these discussions up front beforehand.
Yes.
And this is obviously if you are serious, right? Not just
Yeah.
your first date. Don't like what's your bank account like. But I mean, if you are seriously considering this, understanding the person's money personality and just their history, because if you are a saver and the other person's a spender, it could cause issues in the marriage, right? Or
Yeah.
there's just a lot of that we see where there's one dominant person when it comes to finances, or all of a sudden they get married and they find out, oh, wait a minute, what do you mean you've got all this debt? How are we going to cope? And it just causes unnecessary pressure and stress. So before you get married, consider having those discussions. And even when you are married, just open communication.
Yeah.
And Brittany touched on something very important. Even if one person is leading the way with regards to the bill payments and things like that, that's key. But have open communication. In our house, Britt
I pay the
actually
bills.
pays the bills, right? I'm the accountant, but
He does
she
too much
handles
math
that.
during the day, so I
Yeah,
have to do it at night.
she does it, and I'm grateful that she does it. She understands the systems over here a lot better. I mean, I've been here for more than a decade, so I understand it now, but there's still certain areas where I'm learning, and so I lean into her, but we still have open communication. It's not she's deciding and she only knows the accounts, or vice versa. We are transparent, the two are one. What's mine is hers, and so we believe in open communication, and it just alleviates financial stress like you won't believe.
Well, and with open communication comes understanding generational behaviors, right? So much of what we learn in our finances is subconscious. It's crazy to me with our kids, they're 5 and 8, how much they pick up on things that we say and do. Just
Hmm.
like, those little like nonverbal behaviors or like something I'm, saying like as I'm talking to myself in the mirror getting
Yeah.
ready or whatever it may be. It's the things that you hear growing up, and that's whether consciously or subconsciously how you are approaching money and how you approach spending, saving, investing, home ownership, car buying. Like all those things are often based off of were you hearing like we don't have enough money for that, or
Hmm.
we're never going to be at that level, or we're not going to make that enough money to go on that vacation. So as a married couple, the more you communicate about finances, the more you see how somebody was raised around
Hmm.
finances and how that is affecting their current mindset as an adult.
Yeah, I think another area is lifestyle inflation,
Ooh, that's a big
right?
one.
So you are earning a particular amount now, and you get that promotion or you get that bonus, and all of a sudden you just start spending it.
Yeah.
And you're not achieving your goals because all of a sudden, again, you're making more money and you feel you need to drive the better car or you need to move into the big house. If that doesn't align to your financial goals, why are you making those decisions? And so I know people that are making $50,000 that have more in savings than people that are making $200,000 because every cent when it comes to the $200,000 is just being spent.
Yeah. On not necessarily things that you are passionate about.
Yeah.
Most people think that they have a money problem. Like, I just need to make more. If I make more, if I increase my income. In our next episode, we'll talk about that, about increasing income and the value that resides in increasing
Yeah.
income. But in reality, it's a clarity problem. If you don't, again, we backing all the way up to the beginning of the start line, if you don't have a set goal,
Hmm.
then you're not going to have a direction to point your money in. Then you're going to wander frivolously, and that leads to the behavior of YOLO and lifestyle inflation and just eventually ignorance. So you can, have two people that make similar amount of money that or make the same income, let's say,
Yeah.
but in the behaviors and the way that they treat the money could lead them in very different directions long term.
True. Yeah. The next myth or area is that people believe that credit cards are the problem.
Oh
What are
yeah.
your thoughts on
People
that?
think they're the enemy. Whew.
Yeah.
I've had so many discussions about that. And I've used this phrase before and you'll hear it on and on throughout this podcast. You've got to know if you're a credit card person. Credit cards are a tool, right? It's in the toolbox of things that you have for your personal finances. And like any tool, it can be useful and it can be destructive.
Yeah.
It's the way that you're treating that tool
Hmm.
is how the outcome, will turn out.
Yeah.
Are you using it? Are you abusing it? Or are you using it responsibly? They can become dangerous again with behavior, right?
Yeah.
So, number one, spending money you don't have. The personal finance 101, you've got to live within your
Within your
means.
means. Yeah.
Just because a credit card company or a bank is lending you $10, $20, $30,000, that does
Hmm.
not mean that you have the capacity to spend that.
Yeah.
And so many people think that it's their right or that they've earned it.
They've worked hard.
They've worked hard,
Yeah.
and I've earned this credit limit and will just spend and deal with it later. When you start spending like that, your spending turns into a very expensive habit and a very expensive debt. Because when you carry balance, then you have 20 to 30% interest that's going to
Hmm.
be slamming you. I mean, people will spend $800, $1,000 monthly on interest, and it's crippling.
Yeah, I think also with credit cards, sometimes we might find ourselves in a position where we are buying things because it's easy to swipe, right?
Sure.
Compared to taking out cash out of my pocket. And again, we are not against credit cards. We use
use
credit
credit
cards
cards.
personally. We use it every day.
Uh-huh.
But we have made a conscious decision that we are going to use the card and we're going to be able to pay it off
Yeah.
in the end of the month, right?
Pay it off on the cycle.
Yes.
Earn the points if you're going to earn the
Yeah.
points. Be wise about it.
Hmm.
But if you can't do that and your behavior shows otherwise and you have a history of that, then you got to put it away and you have to work on paying off that high interest
Yeah,
debt.
pay it off. And then we're not saying that you'll never get to a place where you can start using it again, but you need to, I've said it time and time again, you need to own your own journey.
Yep.
If you get to a place where you can handle it, then great, then start using it, but use it smartly. Use the tool for your benefit, but don't find yourself in a position where you are overspending, and you incurring the interest, and you're buying things that you don't really need. And as a result of that, you're just digging yourself into a bigger ditch when it comes to debt.
So number 3 is being cheap equals being good with money.
I'm going to have to disagree with that myth, right? Because I felt that way at one point in time where I want to be a good steward of the resources that I have. And so as a result of that, I'm always going to buy cheap stuff. But the problem with cheap doesn't necessarily mean good quality.
Sure.
So because I'm compromising, or I used to compromise trying to get the cheapest deal. I wasn't always buying good quality stuff, and then I ended up replacing it, and it ended up costing a lot more. And again, we are people that we like to look for deals. We're not saying don't look for deals, right?
Sure.
When we travel, we have tools that we use to find the best deal. But there have been instances where the best deal wasn't, or the cheapest deal wasn't the best deal, and we
Yeah.
maybe paid a little bit more, like $200 more, got to a destination quicker. But it's just, you know what I'm trying to say? It doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's cheap, it's the best thing.
So yes, being good with money isn't about spending less. Being good at money is about spending intentionally and purposefully. It's about identifying what matters in your life, obviously outside of your bills and your responsibilities. Those take precedence, but also understanding how to pay yourself. And I mean that through like investing and saving, how to pay for or how to save for things that really matter to you.
Hmm.
For us, it's travel. For you, it could be, going out on date nights regularly or nice clothes, things like that. So someone who refused to buy anything or like stresses about every single purchase,
Hmm.
constantly hunting, like we were laughing about this the other day. Obviously, gas prices are a little astronomical
Yeah.
right now. So it's like, do you drive 30 miles to go like find cheaper gas? The whole like searching for a deal to be able to say you got the deal. It, it can end up being more detrimental financially.
And I think at the same time, you've got to enjoy your life, right?
Right.
Again, I've got friends that are super frugal, and to the extent that they don't do anything, the husband never takes the wife out. They don't buy the kids anything because they're saving for the rainy day, or they're saving for the future, and they're missing out on making memories right now.
Do you think there's a connection between frugality and being like financially anxious?
I think so. I think that they are more closely tied than what people actually think
Right.
when it comes to that. I think people, when they've got money set aside, they feel a bit more comfortable, and
Sure.
so all of a sudden, I've
Relaxed.
I've got this little nest egg that I'm building, but quite often that's not enough. Like if you've got an emergency fund, which we highly advise people to have, but it
Right.
just takes one big knock,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden that emergency fund is gone. And if you're putting your comfort, or you find your security in that balance, and so you're not enjoying your life as you go, you could be surprised that, again, one little event could change and rock your world completely.
Sure, sure. Yeah, good money management isn't deprivation. It's intentional spending.
Mhm.
So number 4 is that more income means I should buy a bigger house. This is one that really lights my fire.
Yeah.
Housing is the most dangerous form of lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at how much banks are lending. I mean, there obviously practices are very different than they were decades ago when the economy collapsed, but uh, majority of people buy more house than they can afford.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, and again, this is again what we see in the news with just interest rates changing, just the foreclosures,
Mm-hmm.
people that we've discussed this with, people wanting to buy houses, people that we've coached before. Again, we will give our input, but there's been a few people that's come to me over the past year where they would say that they make, let's say, $5,000 a month. This is just a hypothetical amount, and after the current bills, the car payments and stuff, they've got 3,000. They're going to buy a house for 3,000. I'm like, you don't.
The math
quite,
don't math.
It doesn't math, right?
No.
And it just doesn't make sense because you're not taking into account the unexpected. What happens if you need a new roof? What happens if you need a new fence? There's other things that comes with home ownership that doesn't necessarily come with when you're renting, right? And so these people quite oftentimes might not have owned a house before, and they are wanting their dream house from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, they could make poor financial decisions when it comes to buying the house. Same thing like we spoke about earlier about lifestyle creep. The more money you make, you start buying bigger houses. But in our case, if that's your goal, great. But in our case, in the season that we find ourselves, would a bigger house be great? Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really our goal, right? Like we could go and buy a bigger house. It would mean more cleaning. It would be more outgo of cash with regards to things that needs to be done around the house. But just because we can buy a bigger house doesn't necessarily mean that we should be buying.
Well, the hard thing too about when you buy real estate and or if you know buy a bigger house or more expensive house is when you start looking at your net income. Sorry, your wealth, like
Yeah,
your what is it called? Your
your net worth.
net worth. I
Yeah,
can't think of it.
yeah,
When you start looking at your net worth, you might have some people that are like 800, 900, $1 million net worth, but so much of that is tied up in their house. It's
yes,
not, there's no liquidity to that.
yeah.
And so then when they get into financial bind, I was watching a podcast interview that couples making $200,000, $300,000, but so much of their net
Net
worth
worth.
was tied up in their house. And they were being encouraged to sell the house because of the debt that they were in. And so as you creep up and you go a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, that's one thing that you've got to watch out for is yes, they are investments and yes, you have equity in them, but if you get into a place where you're in a bind and all of your equity is tied up into your
And
house
all of your disposable cash,
and
right?
all your disposable cash and you're really at that top limit of what your budget is, you could find yourself up a creek without a paddle.
What are your thoughts on what a lot of financial experts say in terms of that you should only be spending 25 to 30% on your house?
Yeah, so that's kind of I mean, 30% is really pushing it. They typically advise 25 to
Hmm.
28% and lower the better, right? But stats say that a third of Americans are spending more than 30%.
Hmm.
And so if you've heard of the term house poor, it's that, you could be making a really good income. You could have a lot of equity in your house, but your house poor because all of your fixed income, so your fixed costs or your bills and your mortgage,
Yeah.
those things you have to pay, your internet, that shoots your fixed income through the roof. So then all of your other disposable income and money for investments and savings there's nothing. You
Yeah.
have some people that are living at 95, 96% of their income goes to fixed costs and
I would
they're
say
broke.
that it's also dependent on where you live, right? Like we live
Very
in
true.
Texas and housing is a lot cheaper compared to somebody living in the Bay Area in San Francisco or New York.
We
So
pay for it in taxes, but yeah.
that's true. Thank you,
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's all geographic too. Living here is different than living in Kansas, that's than living in New York City. I mean, you've got to take all that into consideration. But mortgage payments have roughly doubled in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So we're talking, right around COVID, now post COVID. So that's a sticky area that you've got to be mindful of. The big American dream has always been to buy a house.
Yeah.
There's
White picket fences,
yeah. Well, I
the
didn't hear.
movies,
Yeah,
the
I was gonna
movies.
say I didn't grow up with that, but
Yeah.
most financial experts, especially, some that we grew up listening to, or I grew up listening to,
Yeah.
you didn't, but it's buy, buy, buy. Like renting's a waste of money.
Hmm.
You're throwing away renting. Blah blah blah. I mean, you hear the same rhetoric when it comes to
Yeah.
renting, but hey, I'm all for if you're in a season of life, whether you're young, whether you're a nomad and you're traveling, or that's on your heart, like rent. There's no harm in that.
Hmm.
That you aren't locked into something. Your disposable income's not like locked into a
Yeah.
mortgage, and there's no harm in that. I'm very much a proponent of renting because just the times that we're in right now,
Yeah.
I don't think buying is the end all be all like it used to be,
Years
10,
ago.
20 years ago. Yeah.
Agreed. I think the final point that we're going to touch on real quick is that savings alone will make you rich.
Yeah, no, savings are a protection. Savings are your emergency fund. Savings are there to help you in times of job loss, in times of transition. We suggest having 3 to 6 months of livable expenses.
Yeah.
And that's not what your net income or what your income is right now, right? That's Like, what's your bottom dollar? What is, when you strip away all the luxuries, all your
Yeah.
subscriptions, all those kind of things? I'm talking about paying for your mortgage,
Bare
to keep bare
bones.
bones, keep the lights on, have gas and groceries.
Yeah.
You got to know what that number is. So build out a savings, around 3 to 6. I mean, some people, if they have great cash flow, then they'll go up to a
A
year, which
year.
is
Yeah.
awesome to be able to have that. But that's not, saving alone is not going to make you rich. Frugality in saving and not trusting the stock market. And look, I understand there's ups and downs, but you've got to understand it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And for those that have never invested or are scared of investing, you've got to park it and leave it. Investing is growth. Investing is what's going to take you to the next level financially.
Hmm. Yeah. When it comes to investing, I think there are a lot of people that ask us on a regular basis, like, where should they put their money? Everything we share is obviously from an educational perspective. I would say if you are starting out, maybe consider getting a financial advisor, somebody that you trust, okay, that
Not a
can,
percentage based financial
yeah,
advisor,
yeah,
a fee based.
that's a good point,
Yeah.
right? Because people, the advisors earn their commission based on different structures, but you
Sure.
want it to be somebody that you can trust, that has your best interest in mind.
Yep.
Especially if you are anxious, if you're a bit more savvy when it comes to finance, or as time goes, you invest in yourself, whether it's courses or reading books, you'll quickly realize that it's not as complicated as what you might think.
Well, start out with, most companies have matching,
Yeah.
401k, 403b. Start there.
That's actually a form of investing that people don't think about.
Right. It doesn't have to be this confusing crypto real estate. I mean, that's like 10 steps down
Yeah.
the road, right? Like,
And
if
that's
you,
not for everybody.
and some people are far beyond, what we're going to talking about
Yeah.
basic investing, and they're ready for that next level. But the majority of Americans aren't investing at all, or have very minimal investments.
Mhm.
So start with your matching. Try to match as much as your company, whatever formula that they have, so that you can max out the amount that you're getting back from them, and start there. And then you can start branching out into brokerage accounts and other things for your kids that, can help build wealth long term. But again, just putting money aside in a savings account, unless you come upon some good windfall,
Yeah.
generally is not going to lead you to millions, where investing will get you there.
And I think consistency, right? Like investing on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And something that you touched on too, it's kind of set and forget.
Yeah.
And what we mean by that, if you're going to continuously be looking at the stock market and looking at the trends, it could again bring that anxiety, because today the S&P 500 or your favorite stock could be up, and then tomorrow it could go down. And
Yeah.
if you're making decisions based on what the market is doing, it could add a level of anxiety that you don't want.
You don't jump off the roller coaster in the middle of
You
it.
don't.
You got to stay on till
You
the
got to
end.
stick the course,
Mhm.
and especially if you are younger, the earlier you get into the game,
I
the
wish
better.
I could scream this from the rooftops.
Yeah,
In your 20s, I mean, when you get out of college, start investing, and how much further ahead you'll be
yeah,
than people our age, millennials, than those, before us, and even the generation right behind
Yeah.
us. I mean, when I was growing up, like I mentioned earlier, I thought it was so far away. It seems so far away when you're in your 20s, and then 2 decades fly by, and we are still playing catch up, to be completely transparent, and from where we should be for our age. If you do the formula and the numbers,
yeah.
but yeah, that's huge. Start investing as early as possible.
Start investing, educate yourself as you go,
Yeah.
and yeah, if you find yourself, I just feel like if there might be people watching this that might be older too, and not necessarily in their 20s, and they
Mhm.
might say, "But we've never done this."
On the other end of the spectrum.
I think start today,
Yeah.
right? Even if you're only in a position where you can invest $100 a month, go ahead and do that. We're not going to tell you where to put your funds. Again, you do your research, speak to somebody that you trust, because there's different things called balancing of portfolios, which we're not going to get into right now. That's a bit too much
That's
for
advanced.
this.
Yeah.
That's advanced, but you want to be doing something, right? So that
Yeah.
when you get to the
It's a
age of
behavior.
retirement, that you have something, whether it's 100,000, whether it's $1,000,000. Having
Right.
something is better than having nothing.
It's like working out. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, Brett, so as we wrap up today's episode, my out 2 cents question for you is, what is one belief that you had as a child that is totally different now?
That McDonald's was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't had McDonald's in decades, which I know I'll get slack for, because I know there's some big McDonald's. I don't get it. I don't get the love for the French fries. They taste like chemicals to me. I mean, I think the only thing I used to drink not Diet Coke. Ugh, Coke Zero is my thing,
Yeah.
which I used to have more regularly. I have it maybe once a month
Yeah.
now. So, I mean, okay, maybe I could get a Zero, but the burgers, the fries, I just can't do it.
Yeah. Before I met Brett and I was a student, right? I was all
Oh,
about
the
that
dollar
$1
menu.
menu
Ugh.
2 or 3 times a day. But I haven't really been a regular McDonald's eater since 2016. Our kids love it
Oh,
though,
they love
right?
it. Yeah.
They love their Happy
We,
Meals,
we
and
don't
so
restrict them,
so half of
but
our house, 50% of our house eats it. The
you
other
could have.
50% don't. Yeah,
I just don't like
yeah,
the taste. It's not even that it's fast food. I just don't like the French fries. Give me Chick-fil-A fries all day.
yeah. I think my taste has changed.
Well, that's it for today. We'll see you next time on the R2 Cents podcast.